Hey, everybody. Welcome into another Patriots Beat Live mock draft edition, mock draft 2.0. Alex, I know you're on mock draft like 17.0, but here on the show, we're on 2.0. So we're going to go through a mock draft in a second. But before we get right into the mock draft, I think Robert Kraft, Patriots owner Robert Kraft, in case you need the title, kind of said what everybody else has been thinking about the Patriots drafting recently yesterday in his conference call, I guess let's call it, press conference with the media, basically saying the last few years the draft has not been good enough for the Patriots and saying that good teams build through the draft, which I thought was really surprising after the way that the Patriots had spent. And it was also a pretty big public criticism, I would say, of Bill Belichick in the front office, which you don't normally hear from Robert Kraft. Usually he's the type of guy that's through and through behind Bill, and not that he's no longer behind Bill, but he's still coming out in the public and saying that it hasn't been good enough. And I think that that's a really interesting element to all of this. Tonight, we are going to try to make a good draft happen for the Patriots, and we're going to have some fun with it. But the main goal of tonight's draft is that the Patriots are going to stick at the 15th pick, and we're going to talk through some scenarios of what could happen at 15.
Let me add, though, that doesn't mean we're not going to get aggressive and consolidate picks. We got,
we're still going to make some trades, but we wanted to do this one this way because last week, if you are saying, well, why aren't they trading up for a quarterback? Last week we traded up to what, 6 or 7?
Six and got Justin Fields. We traded up to 7. You're right, it was 7 with Detroit. We got Justin Fields last week.
So if you want to see the aggressive trade up mock draft, that was last week's mock. This week we're sticking at 15, and we're going to keep on sort of changing the scenarios as we go here. So Alex, let's pull up the simulator and let's get going here, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion over the next hour or so about things that we can do here. So let's run it through, and maybe we can pause it at around the 5th pick and just kind of see who's come off the board every 5 picks or so before we get off to 15 and go that direction. But again, we are going to stick at 15. We might trade back from 15, but the goal is to get to 15 before we decide to make a decision.
Well, I think there's going to be some good players on the board at 15. I'll just real quick so everybody's clear, just a little breakdown here. Last time, if you remember, we had some weird things. Like I think Amari Rodgers was on the board in the 5th round, 6th round, right? So we're going to turn the rain, and we'll turn it up a little more now. Let's have some fun. But we've slid this a little bit more towards public. The PFF board is very heavily based on college performance. It's maybe not as updated with, some of these pro days and stuff like that. So we're going to go a little more towards the public consensus just to give us hopefully a little bit more of a realistic board to pick from. We're picking as the Patriots, and we're off. Evan, you want to stop at 5, you said?
Yeah, let's stop at every 5 picks or so just to see who's coming off the board. And
okay, well, let's stop after. Well, okay, well, this one's already weird.
Right.
Zach, okay, so I don't know what Trevor Lawrence did.
They went out of order, but those 3 guys are going to be the 3 guys taken on at the top of the draft. So it's not completely ridiculous, just out of order in terms of Lawrence and Wilson.
All right, so we keep going. Falcons grab Penny Sewell, Jalen Waddle. So see, where it's weird is you'd probably see, we'll go through Detroit, you'd probably see a team move up for a quarterback in one of these spots.
Right, so I think
there's no way all 4 of those teams make those picks.
I think the 4th pick is really fascinating because if you're the Atlanta Falcons, you have Matt Ryan under contract for 2 more years. It's not an easy deal to get out of. You have to sort of think about your timeline, right? And as good as some of these quarterbacks are, it would probably be great for Atlanta to segue from Matt Ryan to Trey Lance if this is the way that the draft goes and Trey Lance is staring at them in the face at number 4. But at the same time, you have to look at timelines. You have to see if things line up, and it might not line up right now for Atlanta to make that aggressive move at quarterback. So to me, the first 3 picks we know are going to be quarterbacks. I think it's going to go the way that this one went for the most part, right? Lawrence
just flip Wilson and Lawrence, basically.
Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, 1, 2, 3. So 4 is kind of where the draft starts to me, right? That's where the teams that are going to be looking to trade up might want to trade up aggressively. All right, let's keep going. See some of these receivers: Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase going 1. 3.
And there goes Trey Lance, and this should be Mac Jones. Nope. So maybe we get Mac Jones at 15. Is it possible?
Pitts at 11. That's a steal for
them. And we're gonna have a chance at Mac Jones here. But there's no way this happens.
Right. So what ended up happening in this edition, and I think we can just we did this last time where we kind of used our own judgment to bypass you guys. What happened is that because we didn't trade up with the Patriots pick, nobody else traded up to jump into the top 10 to grab Mac Jones. So Carolina was able to stay in their spot and get Trey Lance because nobody traded up to 4, right, for a quarterback. So in most cases, you think that quarterback is going to come off the board at number 4, and then Lance is going to come off the board at number 4. Mac Jones will then come off the board with somebody else trading up in the top 10. So let's treat it like Mac Jones has already come off the board because we know that this probably isn't going to happen. That name at the top of that list right there is really intriguing to just hit draft right next to it. I think that this is one of the more talked about things at this point, but certainly a thing that we do need to discuss is what is going to happen, not just this year, not just in terms of 2021, but beyond 2021 at the cornerback position for the Patriots. There is a possibility, and I'm not saying it's a high possibility, but there is a possibility in 2022 that Stephon Gilmore and J.C. Jackson are no longer New England Patriots. And that's sort of the equations that I think the Patriots will be playing off in their heads. And the second thing in this, too, is that Christian Darrisaw and Rashawn Slater went the 2 picks right before we got on the clock. So that's kind of the conversation. And there's one other guy I want to see here. Okay, so he went. So the conversation I was really hoping we'd have is J.C. Horn versus Christian Darrisaw. Right. That's a good conversation to have. And maybe we can have that talk because we can think, okay, trading up from 15 to, let's say, 12 or something like that is really not that big of a trade up compared to what we did last week. So maybe you only have to throw in a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick to make that jump, to just jump somebody for one player that's not a QB. So I do want to talk about J.C. Horn, though, because I think that's a really solid pick, a guy that just oozes everything that the Patriots want at cornerback. Press man, physical at the line of scrimmage, plays the ball well down the field, has an alpha mentality, is going to want to take the number 1 receiver, is going to want to shut down his side of the field, plays the run physically, plays passes into the flats, screens, running backs, things into the flats, reverses, all those things extremely well with a physical brand of football. But the other name that is sitting there too, and maybe this is more of like a trade back a couple of picks, is Rashad Bateman at 18. Now, I'm on the record saying that I would rather not take a wide receiver in the draft in the 1st round. I would definitely rather wait until day 2 for that need. But I feel like that's a nice option as well. And Kwity Paye sitting there a little bit down the board too, I think is a decent option. So this is a scenario, I think, where the tackles are gone, the quarterbacks are gone. We're saying in theory, it's either J.C. Horn or a trade back, I would say at this point.
So here's the only thing I'd say. I wonder if, because there's three top tier corners in this draft. Surtain is number 1, and that's the discussion. I think did he go 4th in this?
Yeah, he went up.
He went up there somewhere. He went 10th. Okay. So Fairley went 12. And you have, Atlanta, if they stay, they could take a cornerback. I wouldn't rule out Detroit taking a corner. I wouldn't even rule out Denver taking a corner. So there's a lot of spots here for cornerbacks. And now that Caleb Fairley has had this back surgery, right, or this back procedure, whatever it was, do you think, by the time we get to the draft, we're sitting here and people still are high on Fairley, but 28 days from now, does J.C. Horn become CB2? And are we talking about Caleb Fairley at 3? Are we talking about which Virginia Tech player do you take at 15 between Fairley and Darrisaw?
So I'm actually of the belief that J.C. Horn is already CB2.
Okay.
And the biggest reason why is that Caleb Fairley is a very inexperienced player at the cornerback position. I think that what you're doing with him is betting on upside and projection. And Philadelphia is definitely the type of team that would do that, right? They would, I think, definitely pick a guy with higher upside. J.C. Horn is a ready-made cornerback in the NFL. He's a very polished player, and he kind of gets the game and understands what he's looking at and how to read routes and how to anticipate things. Fairley is survived at Virginia Tech mainly on athleticism and explosiveness and physical traits, right? Whereas J.C. Horn has a lot of those things, plus he has the instincts and the feel for the game. Some of that certainly probably comes from his father too, right? Playing in the NFL. So to me, we've talked about this a lot, wanting to take sort of these name brand, blue blood type of players. it doesn't get much more name brand and blue blood than an SEC corner whose father played wide receiver in the league, right? That's pretty safe pick. It's kind of similar to Antoine Winfield Jr. last year. I liked a lot for the Patriots. So to me, I like J.C. Horn here. I think that probably is going to be pretty unpopular from some people in the chat, but that's the way that I feel looking at the board, the way that it's lined up right now.
I think corner is a much bigger need than people realize. And even though this draft does have some depth at cornerback, there's a huge drop, I think, from 3 to 4. I think when you go after J.C. Horn and you start talking about Greg Newsome, you start talking about Asante Samuel Jr., good players, absolutely. But like you mentioned, J.C. Horn is a plug-and-play guy. Yeah. He's going to be ready right away. So, we could trade back and still probably get a decent corner, but I think J.C. Horn's just a really good player. If there's a shot at him at 15, again, the Patriots need to consolidate picks. Trading back, I'm looking at this. I think, okay, maybe we trade 15 back to 20, let the Bears snag Mac Jones, and we can get J.C. Horn there. But you have Arizona really needs a corner. Oakland really needs a corner. And Vegas. And I won't count out Brian Flores taking a good man-to-man corner. So I feel like if we don't take J.C. Horn here, we're not going to get him. So right. I agree with you. So I think the pick here is J.C. Horn, even though the chat doesn't want it. We'll let the chat make another pick, but I think we're going to go J.C. Horn here.
Right? We're going to go J.C. Horn here. Mac Jones will come off in a couple of picks, and everybody be like, why didn't they take Mac Jones? Again, we're assuming that Mac Jones is off the board before 15. Right. And we're just saying that was a wonky randomness type of thing with the simulator. So he's probably going to go to the Washington football team right here.
Or Chicago. Yeah. Washington. Good call. Could he pays Chicago? That's him opposite Khalil Mack.
That's a good twosome right there. Yeah. That's definitely a formidable tandem.
There goes your boy Greg Newsome. So the reason we're letting this go slow is saving to the Steelers.
Cosme, Rashad Bateman. That would have been nice to kind of come back up and scoop up. And Jalen Phillips, another good player.
So, and there goes Rondale Moore.
Okay. Are starting to fly off. So I wonder at this point with this trade up that we want to make, you have to start having a conversation about a lot of these wide receivers in this simulation are gone. Rondale Moore just went, Terrace Marshall went, Bateman went. Is Elijah Moore still on the board? So
Elijah Moore is still on the board.
That's the player that I would be really, if we're going to make this trade up from 46 to 31, seeing that this run of wide receivers just happened, it kind of feels like you need to go in that direction if you're going to make this move up. Because if you're going to wait on wide receiver, it looks like you're going to end up with somebody well down the board, right?
Well, so let me add, we could trade a little further back because Kadarius Toney's still on the board too.
Okay, so that's a good pick also. All right.
So and look, no tackles went. Very few tackles, I think, went.
That's true too.
So we could so I think whatever happens, I think trading up here, I don't know that the Patriots trade with the Chiefs, but they're not trading with the Bills and they're not trading with the Bucks. So this is the best shot.
They're taking wide receivers either. Like the Chiefs are not going to take a wide receiver here. They might take a tackle here.
They might because they're the Chiefs, but
they might take a tackle here. Though. If we're going to be realistic, that's probably their biggest need right now. So the question is do we want to tackle or do we want to wide out? I think we're still too early to have the quarterback discussion after missing out on the top 5 guys. So
real quick before we answer that, what the trade is, and this is going off of the Bill Belichick trade chart for those who aren't familiar, basically every pick is assigned a value. All the teams use a similar chart, and that's how they know. So what we have right now, a chance to consolidate picks. This 31st pick here is worth 190 points on the Belichick trade chart. If we trade 46, 96, and 122, that gets us to 191 points. So generally, you got to get within 5 or 10. So this is about dead even here on the Bill Belichick trade chart. This is the trade. Now, look, you're only making 2 top 100 picks if you make this trade. And that's going to, not that we can't trade back up, but you're only making 2 top 100 picks if you make this trade. The thing, though, is that first round pick and the difference between trading for 31 and, say, 33, you get that 5th year of team control, right? You get that player option. It's so much more valuable. It's a lot to give up, but I think we're going to get a good player at this spot. And
you've convinced me, and I think that we should trade up here to 31. I think a tackle should be our target.
So we got to hope the Chiefs do it. Yep. Okay, there we go. So
It's a solid trade. So let's go to the tackles.
Well, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put all up the tackles and the wide receivers, and that's going to be. So here we have the top tackles, the top wide receivers. Elijah Moore. So
the guy I want to look at right now, there's two guys, but the first one I want to look at right now is Tavin Jenkins right there from Oklahoma State. This is a nasty, mauling right tackle prospect, just a hard-nosed, lunch pail type of guy that just put on an absolute show at the Oklahoma State Pro Day. Had a fantastic day there, tested extremely well. There is some tackle guard versatility here, but I actually think that he's a player that can play the right side for the long term. I would leave him at right tackle. Extremely heavy hands, physical, bruising player. You put him next to Shaq Mason on that right side, you have two bulldozers over there. And I like the prospects of that. This is a guy that has hands that when he latches onto people, he just throws them. Like there's once he gets his hands on you, especially if he gets inside hands on you, it's over. Now, the other name that's on the board here too is Dylan Rad Dunes from North Dakota State, who's a little bit rawer than Tavin Jenkins is in terms of his technique, but he's a left tackle prospect, right? He's got the size, the athleticism, the movement skills to play on the left side. So Jenkins, I think, is more of their type in terms of the hard-nosed element. Rad Dunes reminds me a little bit of Nate Solder, that guy that's a little bit more athletic and can play on that left side. So those two guys are interesting. Leatherwood, I think, is a little bit too early for him, but I would have the conversation between Rad Dunes and Jenkins right now. Wherever you land, I think we can land on it. But again, Jenkins is more of your mauler, hard-nosed type of guy. Rad Dunes is more of your Nate Solder type, the athletic 6'6" to 305-pound tackle prospect. Very, very good player as well. Part of a run-first team at North Dakota State. It's either one, you can't really go wrong, but I would say Jenkins is the more polished, more pro-ready player that you feel better about taking here in terms of played at the FBS level. His technique is pretty solid. If Isaiah Wynn or Trent Brown goes down, I'm fully confident that Tavin Jenkins could step in there this year and play as a rookie. So
a couple things. First off, so you're out on Walker Little.
Yes, definitely. I don't know why Walker Little has moved up this high. Hasn't played football in almost 2 years because he got hurt at the beginning of the 2019 season, and then he opted out of the 2020 season. So he hasn't played a down in football since week 1 of 2019, I believe, which is a long time ago, right? And he's got the physical gifts. He's huge. He's like 6'7", 320 pounds, something like that. But he's got a lot of technique that needs to be worked out, and he hasn't played any football, so you can assume that technique has really regressed. Right. So I think that's a lot more there. And that's the tough part of it for me.
That's fine. I mean, you saw me. I'm just because he's on the picture on the board, and I want to make sure we paint the full picture. Yeah. And by the way, for people just tuning in, JC Horn at 15 was the first pick. So we have a corner. We traded up here to 31. We're debating between tackle and wide receiver. So here's my other question, Evan, because you're between the two tackles, but we do have Elijah Moore on the board. We do have Kadarius Toney, who I love. And you look at, so our next pick is until 120 unless we move back up. But I mean, there's a lot of good tackles in this draft. I mean, you keep going down. There's a lot of good tackles. You're fine passing on Elijah Moore and Kadarius Toney here.
There's a lot of good wide receivers too.
That's true. No, you're not wrong.
You know where I'm going to go with this, Alex. Building up the line of scrimmage is more important than the wideouts at this point.
And you know what? I think if you're taking a guy in the first round, you want a guy who can contribute right away. And I just don't know that there's room for another pass catcher. So let me ask you this. So you're between Jenkins and Rad Dunes, and you're kind of talking about you have the right tackle versus the left tackle.
Right.
And the Patriots are kind of like we talked about with corner. The top two tackles are both in a spot where it's 1 year and then you don't know. Right? They're both on 1 year deals, and we don't really know what Justin Herron, is he going to be a starter? All of that. So who do you have more faith in? Not who's a better player. Who do you have more faith in the team bringing back on a new contract? Isaiah Wynn or Trent Brown?
It's a good question. I think you also have to ask yourself, with how well Tavin Jenkins tested today, can he play left side? Because
so if you think one of these guys can play both sides, there's your answer.
I think that Jenkins is a better player right now. Today, right now, I'm taking Jenkins, but I do think that Rad Dunes' upside to play left tackle is really, really high. And if they want to break somebody in like they did with Nate Solder, where he sits behind Matt Light for a year,
well, that's what it's going to be. Because it might be that you don't know with Isaiah Wynn's injury history, you don't know.
Right, and Trent Brown's not the most durable guy either. He was durable in 2018, but that doesn't mean he's going to stay completely healthy. This is a tough one. I'm conflicted here because I like both of these guys a lot.
So I guess who do you trust more? Who do you trust more to get through the season? Who do you trust more to be back next season? Trent Brown or Isaiah Wynn?
I'm going Jenkins. I think Trent Brown is looking for another reset, just like he got in 2018, right? Where he plays well, resets his market. He does love it in New England, though, and maybe he would give them a little bit of a discount because he realizes that it didn't really work for him in Vegas. But I think I'm more confident in them having Isaiah Wynn on the team in 2022. So let's go Jenkins, especially after today. I feel like he's a surefire first-round tackle prospect at this point.
All right, so J.C. Horn, pick number 1 at 15. We trade up to 31, Tavin Jenkins.
We've gotten two guys that I absolutely love. So I know we haven't gotten.
Welcome to Evan Lazar's mock draft, everybody.
Right, we haven't hit quarterback, we haven't hit wide receiver, and I love the draft. I know everybody else is probably going crazy.
I published my updated mock draft today, 98.5thesportshub.com. My first two picks, tackle and corner. I went the other way. Right. I went tackle and then corner, but there goes Kadarius Toney, the Eagles. So now here's the question, Evan. We're sitting at 120. 120 is a fourth-round pick. It's early, middle of fourth round.
It does feel like we need to cover this gap a little bit.
I think we can pass on the second round. I think we can look to get into we can comfortably get into the third round. Who went with the pick we gave up? Ronnie Perkins, who would not be a bad fit for the Patriots.
I'm fine with it. I'd much rather have Tavin Jenkins. Guy's a stud.
So there goes your boy Jalen Mayfield. We took him last time. So there goes Kyle Trask, 52.
Fine with it. Bye.
And did Mond go? No, Mond didn't go.
That's the guy I'm looking at, right? Is at what point do we have to trade back up to we're going to have to take a quarterback at some point, right? I just
don't think we can get other good players in the third round, and we can get somebody who's just as much of a long shot as Mond later on. So hang on. I'm going to pause this here because we're now at the top of the third round, and there goes Kellen Mond with the last pick in the second round.
Oh, that's actually not a bad pick for Tampa. I kind of like
piss Brady off and win 2 more Super Bowls.
That's Jimmy G reincarnated, right? Yeah, that's the same situation.
Didn't Mac Jones go to Tampa in our first mock? I think he did.
But this is 60. I think the Patriots took Jimmy with 64 in 2000.
No, because he was a third-round pick, wasn't he?
No, second round. I'm pretty positive it was either 63 or 64 because they won the Super Bowl. So I'm pretty sure.
You might be right, actually. No, they didn't because he was on the Seattle team. They took him 62nd. 62nd. So,
I knew it was somewhere in that range.
So that was Landon Dickinson. All right. So now here's the question. I'll go back to the trade chart here. So we have, what do we have left? We have 120, 139, 177. So hypothetically, if we combined those three, and I got to get my calculator out here because I'm not going to try to do math live on the air. 120 is worth 25 points. 139 is worth 17 points. And 177 is worth 7. That's 49. That could get us up to 86. That moves us up 10 spots, unless we want to start using future assets.
So I think 86 we could get another wide receiver at 86 that we would feel comfortable with.
Let's see, because I don't think a lot of wide receivers, Tylan Wallace
and Diami Brown went. Did Amari Rodgers go yet?
Amari Rodgers is not yet off the board. That's the
one guy that you kind of have to think maybe you try to start targeting at this point.
You want to take this maybe 5 to 10 picks at a time and see what happens?
I would. Yeah, we might lose Amari Rodgers in the next 5 picks, but we can give it a go. Creed Humphrey, good pick.
Eric Stokes, that's low for Stokes. I had Stokes in the second round of my mock today.
Ali McNeil, solid pick.
Jabril Cox,
good pick.
So if we want to get up to 70, right? So our next 3 picks are worth, what I say was 49 points.
Yep.
If we want to get up to 70, it's going to cost 70 points.
Okay, so we got to keep going, I suppose. I think we hit wide receiver. I still think we need to draft a quarterback at some point, whenever that is. It can be whenever. And I think that it'd be the best interest to draft an off-ball linebacker at some point as well.
Yeah. So I'll just say this again,
and maybe running back at some point too.
Right. So I'll say this though, why are we we could trade up here, right? But I think that now that we missed out on the quarterbacks in the top 5 and we missed out on the B group, which is Trask and Mond,
right?
We're going, even if we get Jimmy, and I was thinking about maybe we trade a 3rd round pick for Jimmy in this mock, but maybe we'll push that to another one. Niners are going to hold on to Jimmy in this simulation, but we're going to be on the board for a quarterback next year, right?
Yeah.
We're going, so let's not, I'd like to, if anything, pick up future assets, which we haven't done, and we probably can't at this point, but I'd like to hold on to the future assets so next year we can trade up and try to get our quarterback.
That's the idea, right?
Right. So let's go. What did I say it was? It was 86. Let's call it 85 because we're not going to trade with the Jets. But again, that's trading our next 3 picks. There's Davis Mills.
Wow.
Rashad Weaver. I'm going to speed this up a little bit.
Elijah Molden.
Or Darius. You like him?
Marvin Wilson. Yeah, none of these guys that are coming off the board though right now, you're losing any sleep. Amon-Ra, okay, so that one's tough.
So there's a back-to-back burn for you because you've been talking these guys up the last couple days.
Well, the problem is that now you've lost Davis Mills and Jamie Newman. So where are we going at quarterback?
I know where we're going, and we have plenty of time. It's fine.
If you the guy that you were talking about last night,
we have a whole year. I know where we're going. We're going Phil Dracovic next year. We're going to combine this pick, in this pick, in this pick, and get Phil Dracovic next year.
We're going to get everybody.
That's where we're going.
And we're just going to completely punt on quarterback in this draft. Is basically what we're saying.
Maybe we go in the 7th round. So, and by the way, whoever just mentioned Jalen Twyman in the draft, great name there. Great name to know.
Trading back up to this, if we had known that the Eagles were going to take Jamie Newman here, then I probably would have been a little bit more aggressive to trade with Washington or with Chicago.
But are you willing to give up your next 3 picks for Jamie Newman?
I guess not. I don't know.
Exactly. Because right now, again, if we're going by the trade chart, 120, 139, and 177 get us 85. Really get us 86. I'm giving us a point because the Patriots won't trade with the Jets.
So I think that what we have learned, though, because every quarterback is off the board at this point, right? We're talking about Ian Books, Felipe Franks, Sam Ellingers of the world, right? Every single quarterback is off the board. So I think what this mock draft simulation told us is that if the Patriots miss out on those top 5 guys, and they don't use 46 on a quarterback either, it's really difficult for them to get a quarterback. Right? At one point, even 46, I think, is a little bit of a stretch for a guy like Amond or certainly a guy like a Newman. We probably should have taken the quarterback at 31. And that's still a little bit high.
No, that's if you're taking a quarterback that high, that's a guy. I mean, that rules out Jimmy. That rules out next year. That's your guy. Nobody on the board at that point was that guy. So nobody was good enough.
What we learned from this simulation is that once those 5 guys are gone off the board, the Patriots, where they're set to pick, it's going to be hard to get one of these other guys that you can be excited about, right? Unless you take one at 46. But that 46 to 96 stretch that we just covered, basically, you're going to be in a tough spot at those places. So we missed out on the QBs. At this point, you're kind of in the conversation of just surrounding Cam with as much as you possibly can, right? So now you kind of have to make some calls up to Tennessee here, I think, to start talking about some of the wide receivers that are still up on the board.
So, and again, we could try. I just want to recap because we have some people coming in. We took J.C. Horn at 15, top 5 quarterbacks, all off the board. Took J.C. Horn at 15. We then traded our 2nd and 3rd round picks up back into the 1st. We took, who did we take? Tavin
Jenkins from Oklahoma.
Tavin Jenkins, offensive tackle at 31.
Long-term corner need, long-term right tackle need.
And now we are trying to move back up again, consolidating picks. So the other thing we can do, Evan, we could wait like 5 picks and maybe, I mean, how much of a difference are you feeling between 177 and 188?
Not a huge one. And at this point, I also wonder, can you flip one of these 4th round picks into next year? Because you've missed out on all the quarterbacks at this point, right? When do we start considering doing that. As
so
maybe we don't have to do that because we don't have to like be that serious about it. But
no, I hope that happens, and you can basically flip a fourth for a third. Most teams will do that,
right? So
especially if we find a team that has a ton of draft stock.
You grab another third in 2022 because we're going to end up trading up for a Djokovic or Ryder or Owl or like that.
So then here's the questions. Here's the question: is if we do that, we can't move up here, right?
So I think we try to. I think at this point you have to look at it one of two different ways. Either you're pushing all your assets into 2022 to be set to move back up for a quarterback then because you missed out this year, or you're getting all the talent you possibly can around Cam Newton to build the team up this year. Or maybe it ends up being they're able to get some, Jimmy Garoppolo in some way, shape, or form, right? Those are the two options there. At this point, you're saying that Cam or maybe Jimmy G as a long shot are your quarterback in 2021. So I think we have to start thinking about moving up for a wideout to make this team as good as possible for the 2021 season.
Okay, so we're going to trade these 3 picks.
Do we have to trade all 3?
That's how the trade chart goes.
Wow.
It's 25 plus 17 plus 7. Do the math. 25 plus 17 plus 7. That gets us to 49 points, and this pick is worth 50 points right here. So, I mean, if you want to kind of slide back a little bit, we can maybe hold on to one of them.
No.
But this is the cost of doing business at this point.
Okay. I think we do it, and I think we take Amari Rodgers, and I think we don't think twice about it.
All right. Let's see if PFF agrees with the chart. They do. And they have like Amari Rodgers low on. I think he's below Jalen Darden.
Let's see where
Did we miss him? Nope. I mean, they have him all the way down here.
All right. I don't care. I'm not
okay. All right. I mean, this is a good spot, I guess, for Amari Rodgers.
Perfect spot for him. And we talked a little bit about the need for a pass catching running back. Well, Amari Rodgers might just be that in himself as well, right? This year.
So now, and I'll take him. We now have 100 spots without a pick.
It's a lot.
And we really can't trade up. That trade might not have been worth it. We might have been able to wait and get, Kadarius Toney or something.
We could wait in this mock draft simulator. I don't know if we could wait in real life, Well,
I'm saying we could have gotten like Kadarius Toney or somebody like that.
Maybe. I think Amari Rodgers and Kadarius Toney are really close. I don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and we could have waited.
Right. I'm just saying that I don't think. I think getting Amari Rodgers at 85 is great value compared to taking Kadarius Toney at 31.
We also lost 2 other picks, but here we go. So now we're sitting here at 188, 6th round. And here's the options. Tonga's not a bad option. He's a pretty.
Can we look, just humor ourselves and look at the quarterback list and just see if there's anybody.
Yeah, we can wait until 242 at this point, I think.
Yeah,
for any of these guys.
All right. How about running back?
So running back, Puka Williams, we took him last time. Yep. CJ Verdell, I really like, but I actually just found out today he's going back to school, so he shouldn't be on here.
Oh, okay.
So
Jefferson's an interesting name.
But again, a guy we can probably wait on.
Yeah. So the running back is Gainwell went already. He's a pass catching running back. I guess he already went. All right. What about linebacker?
I was going to say, so we can take a look at the linebackers.
If not, maybe we take a look at safety.
Well, here, hang on. I'm just going to do this. Linebacker and edge. Yeah, nobody's blowing me away here.
A pretty Patriot-like player on the edge. Jonathan Cooper. Patrick Jones, I think, really has a lot of upside back here to get him all the way down here. Cooper is your typical set the edge, strong, sturdy guy. I'm not sure if they necessarily need that at this point, but that's the type of player that he is.
Well, I mean, at this point, we're not talking about 2021. We're looking at who maybe has some upside.
Who has a chance of making the team, right?
Right.
All right, man.
I mean, I don't love it. Do you want to just trade this for a future 5th? I don't love any of these picks.
Yeah, I don't like
it. Who's calling? Dallas and Atlanta? That Atlanta pick could be we'll give it all right, so there we go. So we trade out again. I mean, we're consolidated. We've only made 3 picks.
Hey, I like that.
And here we are on the board again.
why make a ton of picks in a draft where nobody knows anything about the prospects, right? I mean, this is one of those drafts where everybody's running a 4.3 at their pro day. It's really difficult to tell. A lot of these guys don't have a ton of tape out there. We missed out on the quarterbacks. If there's any draft to only make 4 or 5 picks, it's this one, right? This is the type of draft to do it in. All right, let's look at these options now.
I mean, it's basically the same group. So I mean, Michael Mennett's an interesting pick.
I still think, okay, yeah, I could get behind it. I mean, I don't know. Do we think David Andrews just signed a 4-year deal?
Well, it's because it's just 2 full guaranteed. He'll be on the wrong side of 30 after that deal. And at the very least, right, you only have Ted Karras on a 1-year deal. At the very least, you're getting a good, reliable backup
so Alex,
for David Andrews.
Jonathan Adams is still on the board.
Yes. I want to talk about Jonathan Adams.
Let's look at wide receiver. Maybe the value here is to actually double dip at that position, right? We didn't do a N'Keal Harry trade this week, but that's definitely something that could happen, right?
So somebody just brought up taking a kicker here. This is actually a very interesting spot to take a kicker. And I don't, as much as I like Nick Folk, he's 37, kickers are sporadic. I wouldn't hate bringing somebody else in. The only problem is PFF doesn't let you draft kickers.
Oh, no.
I tried it last night. So I would be fist on the table for a kicker here, but it's not going to fit.
Let's scroll down a little bit more on these wide receivers. Okay, so
it's Adams at this point.
I don't hate your guy Adams at this point. I don't.
So here's the thing about Jonathan Adams. He is a 50-50 menace. Right. It's not even fair to call them 50-50 balls when you're talking about Jonathan Adams. I mean, his height, his leaping ability, his body control, strong hands at the catch point, all of it. I mean, he just makes circus catch after circus catch. Why is that guy available in the 6th round? That's pretty much all he does. Not a great route runner, average speed. He's not slow, but he's got average speed. Can't do a ton after the catch. So he's basically just a red zone jump ball threat right now. He could develop. So the idea behind Adams is he's going to push N'Keal Harry.
Right.
Best case scenario, he makes N'Keal Harry expendable. You can trade him and probably get a return on your investment and reset the clock in terms of the contract. Worst case scenario, you should be able to get him on the practice squad. The thing with 2 receivers is, like, is there a real chance Adams can make the roster? Even if you take Harry off.
So we have Amari Rodgers we drafted already.
Yep.
Nelson Aguilar is obviously making the team. Jacoby Myers is making the team.
Yep. Kendrick Bourne's
making the team. Then you have N'Keal and you have Julian Edelman.
So it's basically between Edelman. If Edelman's healthy, he's making the team, but it's between him, Adams, and N'Keal. You know what? My whole plan is to kind of bring somebody in to fight with N'Keal. And for that last roster spot, maybe it's Adams. People are bringing up safeties. They do need a safety. We looked. I don't think there were any names that we were
a terrible prospect. He's a guy that I think could compete here a little bit, maybe play a little bit on special teams. That's the other thing too, is that with this spot, Bill's thinking special teams here, right?
If we're going to take a special teams player here, I'll tell you who it is. If it's not a kicker, again, I'd like to take a kicker here. PFF doesn't let you. This is a special teams pick if you're picking here.
Okay.
Grant Stewart from Houston, great Senior Bowl, 4-year contributor at Houston, played over 500 special team snaps, plays with just an insane motor, loves contact. This is your Nate Ebner. He's going to fill that Nate Ebner role. Brandon King hasn't played in 2 years due to injury and an opt-out. They just cut Cash. This would be Stewart's the pick if we're going special teams here.
So Cash, they tried Cash last year. Obviously, they just cut him. That sort of synopsis of Stewart sounds a lot like Cash did coming out, right?
Right.
A player that plays fast, plays like his hair on fire, plays in special teams. You've convinced me there with that being the pick, because at this point in the draft, nobody's making the team unless they can play on special teams, right? That's the only way they're making the squad. So maybe we take a special teams linebacker here. They did just sign Raekwon McMillan, who can play a little bit on special teams too. So I'm not sure if they necessarily see special teams linebacker.
Leroy Reynolds would be another one.
Right. So it's a tough spot to be in right now at the back end of the draft, but I don't.
Well, so here's the other thing we can do, right? Because we still want to take a quarterback maybe at the end.
Yeah.
And I see people talk about running backs. All the receiving running backs are off the board at this point. We wanted to. The other thing we can do, we got the Rams calling. We can just push this back. We've consolidated enough. We can turn this into 2 picks and still probably get all 3 that we want.
Okay. The thing is that that might be a good move just because at this point of the draft, you're throwing darts, right? So
yeah.
So trading back a little bit and adding a couple of more picks to allow ourselves to take a couple of darts here might be the best bet because we're not totally sold on any of the players that are still on the board, right? So
yeah. So this right here is even swap on the trade chart, 4 points for 4 points. We only move back 12 spots, pick up a pick. So this might be the move here. We might lose Jonathan Adams.
Right.
Let me see how high up. I can get us to 201. See if but the Giants only have the 1 pick. Here we go. Right there. That'll do it. Did we already trade with the Titans?
Probably.
We did. Yes, we did, because here's our pick. All right. We're risking losing Jonathan Adams here. He's going right here. What? Yep. So now we have this pick we don't want.
Well, let's look at wide receiver again, and let's pull up.
Oh, well, you can still take Michael Menet. We were into Michael Menet.
We were a little bit. I like Patrick Jones. I can't believe he's still on the board.
He's just not is he going to play here? What's his role?
He's not a 3-4 end. He's more of a 4 end. That might be a problem. But just in terms of talent and upside, he's got more talent and upside than anybody else that's still on the board right now by far.
Puka Williams is still here. We could take Puka Williams again. So
Puka Williams is JJ Taylor 2.0, right? Small, shifty, elusive, pass-catching running back. That's we could take Puka 2 drafts in a row, but
sure. You want to do it? I mean, I was thinking maybe we would try not to double up, but the only thing with Menet, you mentioned Jones' upside. With Menet, I just think you're going to have a good backup center for 4 years, and there is something to that, especially this late in the draft.
That's fair. Pull up wide receiver again.
It was Jonathan Adams was the last one. I'm telling you. Unless you're a big Wap Taylor guy.
No, I'm not a big Wap Taylor guy. Ugh. I would have liked to do the double dip at this point of the draft at wide receiver.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have traded back because you had me want to take the quarterback, so we had to trade back there.
I know. All right, so I say that we either we double up with Puka, or we go with your
Michael Menet. What does the chat want? You want us to grab a backup center, pass catching running back?
Sure. Let's ask the chat.
Whoever gets 5 replies first, that's going to be the pick. I'm so bummed we missed out on Jonathan Adams.
Me too.
That was my own fault. I came up with that trade. All right, that's 1 for the center.
That's true. Center guard. We do have Ted Karras here, but it's only a 1-year deal.
Yeah. All right, there's 1 for the running back.
I know.
1 for Patrick Jones. We'll throw Patrick Jones in 2, I guess, but the running back is 2. Center. There's a bunch for the center. I'll just kidding.
Center wins. Right. I like Patrick Jones too. I agree with you though. It's a kind of a tough fit. I don't know if he's necessarily their type of defensive end.
All right, so Sam Ehlinger and so after all that, we're not going to get we screwed this draft up. We're not going to get Puka Williams. We're not going to get the quarterback.
We're definitely not taking Shane Michelle. So this is a good lesson.
We didn't get John. This is yes. You can get too cute. Well, we wanted the. Well, here's what we can do. We want to pick up future assets, Evan.
Let's just punt the rest of the draft.
Nick Casario's on the phone. Nope. Give us your next year 6th, Nick. What's his name loves this trade? Easterby, because it's probably not a great trade for them, but
this was a great lesson, though, right?
Yes.
Where if you get too cute with the quarterbacks, these quarterbacks and all these simulations that we do, let's go get our
special teams ace. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. All right. We got really good players, right? We did get good players at the top of the draft.
Yeah. Hang on. Take this screen down and I'll pull it up full screen.
Oh, I think that's the biggest thing that we learned here tonight was that we got too cute with quarterbacks. And when you get too cute with quarterbacks in this particular draft, with all those quarterbacks going at the top, they fly off the board. We missed Mond. That is one that we would like to go back and fix. Right, is certainly missing on Mond. Davis Mills went pretty high. Jamie Newman went to 80 something to Philadelphia. So once you do that, I think that really gets you into a difficult spot. So we probably should have either stuck at 46 or maybe stuck at 96 and waited for our quarterback to fall to us then. that's the lesson, though, that if you're not aggressive at that position in a draft like this one, you're not going to get one. And we didn't draft a single quarterback. This is a non-quarterback draft for the Patriots, and that is not what we want right now, right? That's not the direction that we were aiming to go in. So certainly something that we could have gone back and redid it for certain. Certainly wish that we had done that, but that was I think what we learned here tonight was that last week we had the right idea. We traded up to 7. We drafted our guy in Justin Fields, and we filled in the rest of the holes later on in the draft. That being aggressive at the top with the quarterbacks is definitely what we need to do. But that being said, we actually did get 3 really good players, I think, at the top of the draft.
We gave up because I've been, if you want to pull it up here, by the way, I have it set.
Yep.
I've been a big proponent of let's push assets into the future and be ready to trade up next year.
Right.
In terms of future assets, we got a 5th and a 6th. I mean, we gave up a ton. Right. We gave up 2 top 100 picks. We gave up 5 top 150 picks, and we have nothing to show for it in terms of, I mean, we not nothing. We got Tavin Jenkins and Amari Rodgers. I don't know that we needed to make both those trades up. We gave up 6 picks to get those 2 players. That we might have gotten a little aggressive. I think we saw that gap, that existed there. And we
traded up. The problem was when we traded up for Amari Rodgers, the idea was probably to take a quarterback there, but Mills, Mond, Newman, everybody was gone. Right. So that's where I think we got too cute with it, is when we made that trade up to 85. We really should have been thinking of trading up to maybe like 75 and grabbing one of those quarterbacks instead. That's where I feel like we screwed up, was 85, going up to 85. We got too cute with it, waiting all the way to 85 to fill that gap, and we missed out. I just
think if we were going to trade some of those picks, we probably could have picked up a future second, maybe a future third, maybe a future second.
Right.
With all of that. Instead, we got Tavin Jenkins, who's good, but you can get next year, and Amari Rodgers, who I think you can get a guy like that next year. We could have gotten him later. We could have gotten a guy like Jalen Darden later in the draft. So
I love him.
Yeah, I think we got a little the lights got a little too bright for us. Yeah.
We got too cute, and I don't think Bill Belichick is immune to getting too cute himself. I think sometimes
I could totally see this being the outcome.
Right. What I think the Patriots do, and sometimes it gets them into trouble, is that they put players in clusters, right? So they feel like Amari Rodgers at 85 is just as good as Kadarius Toney at 31, right? That's how they look at it. And in with that wide receiver, that's not a bad path to take. But at quarterback, that's what gets you into trouble. And that's what we kind of were thinking was, all right, at this point, Mond here at 31 or Mond at 46 is just as good as Mills at 96, right? And what ended up happening was both of those guys went in that stretch, right? So quarterback's the one position you can't be too cute with.
And I think, I know you're a big Tavin Jenkins guy. I'll add this too. Tavin Jenkins is good. Could we have gotten, there were going to be good tackles on the board at 46. Was it worth giving up? I mean, we gave up basically the 96th pick to get Tavin Jenkins, right? Because 122 is more or less, although 122, so we would have not had that gap. We get another quality player between 85 and 205. We keep 96. Who knows what we could have done with that? Future assets. Could we have gotten somebody like Tavin Jenkins at 46? Did we need to move up? We get the extra year of control on the contract, but did we need to move up to get Tavin Jenkins?
We potentially could have in this simulation. I think Liam Eichenberg went like 42 or 43.
Yeah.
Those guys are somewhat similar types of prospects, similar builds, win in similar ways. So maybe we could have done that. But I think that the depth of the tackle class is really, really good. But I think there are some prospects that would have been available at 46 that I think are a little bit overrated in terms of their technique. They're a little bit raw. You're talking about balls of clay that people are just sort of thinking that you can morph into something. With Horn and with Jenkins and with Rodgers, what I like about what we did with those 3 picks is those are NFL-ready players today. Like, you can put those guys into roles. Jenkins could start at right tackle. Horn could start at outside corner, and Amari Rodgers could start at Z, and you would be all set. You could just put those guys on the field week 1, day 1, and let it roll. And there's something to be said for that. And I think some of the tackles that if we had waited a little bit longer, I'm not sure they're as plug and play as a guy like Tavin Jenkins.
But again, it's not as much play. It's more about 2022 because we have those two guys this year.
So I guess we could.
Maybe that was the mistake.
I think that's a fair criticism if that's what you're saying is. Yeah, we could have waited, but I don't know. I think this like undenying trust of the Patriots to take a tackle at any point in the draft and have it work out is. It's a risky business, right? Certain guys like Michael Onwenu, he falls to the 6th round because he was 385 pounds in college, right? And everybody was concerned about that. The Patriots weren't concerned about that because they knew they could get him down to a more comfortable weight. Marcus Cannon fell all the way to the 6th or 5th round, whatever that was, because he had cancer. Right, not because he was a player that was actually valued in that spot in the draft, but because he had a very serious off-field illness. So these guys that they do find, Shaq Mason's a 4th-round pick, Joe Tooney is a 3rd-round pick. It's possible that we could have waited on tackle, but I feel like we got a premium player in Tavin Jenkins. He
is. I just think, again, the trade up from 46 to 31 in a bubble, I don't hate. The trade up to 85, I don't hate. I think making both of those picks and not getting back any future
yeah, that's fair.
I think we could have, and we went into this saying, the goal was, because that's kind of what we want to do with some of these mocks is kind of give ourselves certain handcuffs to see what things look like. The goal going in was to trade up. We talked about this before we came on the air. The goal was to trade up into the back end of the 1st round and see what that looks like. Now that I look at it, even with that extra year on the contract, you can take, 96 and 122 might in 46. You can probably move up. Sorry, you can take one of those off. You can take one of those picks off, only give up 2 picks, move up in the 2nd round and still get a good player. I don't think that jump to the back end of the 1st round, given the positions the Patriots need this year, given the depth at those positions, that trade to me really doesn't seem worth it, especially when you go and you make that 2nd trade up like we did later on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that we obviously are going to have to continue to preface that this draft was a draft that we decided to stay at 15 and not trade up for a quarterback. Right. And that's sort of what put the whole thing off.
But there is a warning here in that too. Again, we started by trading up and then we didn't like the gap. So we traded up again and then it kind of got away from us, right? 85 to 205. That's a massive gap. So a reminder again about, how high you're going to trade up. What are you going to give up? The draft can get away from you very quickly. And again, I just don't know, we got some good players, like you've said. I don't know, given the assets we went in with, I don't know that we came out the other end with equal value to those assets. I think overall our assets have depreciated after this draft.
That's fair. I think what our main goals here were obviously to draft good players, which we did, but also consolidate picks. And I think maybe we got too caught up in not taking enough guys, right? And not wanting to take a ton of guys. So I think that's a big element of it.
I will add, this is a really good point in the chat. We traded up for the 2 deepest positions in the draft.
But I don't know.
There's still, look, and
there's a big difference to me between Amari Rodgers and Jalen Darden. And I like Jalen.
Well, you're right. I was thinking corner. We didn't trade up for the corner. Maybe he's looking at that. I was thinking corner and tackle because I got confused looking at the graph.
Yeah, the tackle, I don't know. It's to me, I like I said before, you're looking at tackles that are very, very raw. Sure, the Patriots developed those guys really well. Maybe you can get excited about some of the guys later on in the draft. But I don't know. To me, I'm perfectly fine all day, every day with taking a guy like Tavin Jenkins because he's a program builder, right? He's a guy that you can build around as a blue chip player. I think that's always going to be fine with me. J.C. Horns is in a similar category. And if we're talking about wide receiver being a deep position, by the time we got to Amari Rodgers, I think there was probably 15 wide receivers off the board. Right. There was a lot of wide receivers that were already gone. So you're going to be talking about guys that I don't think are anywhere near as good as Amari Rodgers if we had waited at that spot.
The other thing too, if we're just throwing out takeaways here, I think we didn't use the trade chart last time. We just kind of eyeballed it.
Yeah.
I am surprised at kind of how the value shifted. I would think 49 and 96 gets you 31. We would have been significantly short. We would have been too short to like make that a reasonable trade. So that's what it may be this year, because like you've mentioned, with the lack of the combine and the lack of college tape, maybe these picks aren't worth as much, and maybe you can get away with 46 and 96 for 31, stuff like that. The trade up to 85 is probably a little more realistic here, but yeah, I can't help but think we gave up too much to move up.
I don't love what we did either. I like the players that we ended up with. I don't love how we got there. Right?
Yeah, basically. Thank you. That's what I've been trying to say this whole time.
Yeah, I love the 3 guys we ended up with, and I think in the draft of a lot of uncertainty, we got 3 players that we're certain are good football players, right? And that's hard to do in a year like this. And we got them from big programs and big kind of situations. So I'm happy with the players that we got in Horn and Jenkins and Amari Rodgers. We didn't go about it the best way. That's the best way of putting it. Yeah.
But that is part of the reason we're doing these drafts the way we are. Again, we're kind of trying to add conditions to them where, we want to do one of these every week. If we just trade up for a quarterback every week, it's going to be the same mock draft over and over and over again. Right. There's no fun in that. So
right. That was the goal. And next week, we'll probably do something like a trade back or do another kind of scenario that we throw out.
And if you want to throw some options out in the chat of, what kind of drafts, I do want to do one day, and maybe this is the last one we do before the draft. How many more of these do we have? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. And then I think, are we going to do one that Tuesday? Are we going to flip the shows that week, the week of the draft?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay. So we have 4 more. I want to do one where we just rapid fire a bunch of like different conditions, like one where we just do SEC players or something, one where we just do ACC and but like we're not fully explaining them. We're just rapid fire 3 or 4 drafts off in a session. So that's one idea I have. You want to do one where we trade back from 15? Maybe that's next week.
So I almost vouched for that today because I felt like we were in that kind of no quarterback range, and how much do they really value JC Horn versus some of the other guys that would have been on the board, right? I think that's something that we had that conversation at the beginning of the show. But I think mainly what we wanted to do today was stay at 15 and pick a player that we could sit here and say realistically would be there at 15 and a guy that makes sense at 15. And I think that's exactly what we got with a guy like JC Horn. So that's the important thing here. And we got 3 good football players at the top. Then at the end of the draft, we kind of just threw some darts at the center and at the special teams linebacker. Drafted 5 guys in a draft where I think that's plenty of guys to take. So I think that this is a pretty solid draft in terms of players that we actually got that are very, very talented guys on the field, even if we didn't necessarily get there the best way.
Yeah. So, and again, I think it got away from us. It really did. Right. I think
this is why they don't pay us to be one of the 32.
Right. Exactly. This is where everybody in the comments, good thing you guys aren't running the team.
Right.
It's part of it too, is I thought we had such a good, even though we missed on Lance and ended up with Fields. I thought we had can I pull up? I don't have last week's draft. I thought we had such a good draft last week. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe after last week, I personally got a little cocky. I thought it was going to be easy.
When you start at the top of the draft at Justin Fields, you usually can't really go wrong.
No, but it was even after. I mean, let me see if I can pull this up. I mean, because let's do this. Let's kind of, as we wrap it up here, because I know you got to go, but just as kind of a point, right? But even beyond Justin Fields, we got Tyson Campbell, good player. We got Jalen Mayfield, good player. We got Pete Werner, good player. We got Nico Collins, Puka Williams. I mean, all guys maybe if I don't make that stupid trade at 197 and get Jonathan Adams, I'm a little happier about it. But yeah, I don't know. It wasn't as good as the last one. And we still got to get Jonathan Adams in one of these.
I mean, the last one we traded up for a quarterback. So that's what, that's the message. I really think.
But I would say that was arguably like, pound for pound, our worst pick in that draft.
Maybe
we took a good quarterback in the top 10. That's easy.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
So, like, of course, we went in knowing we were going to trade up. Of course, we were going to come away and like that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll bounce back next week. We'll have better draft.
We're going to bounce back next week. Again, though, I want to reiterate, and I'm not backing up our draft. I think a lot of people, if this ended up being the Patriots draft, I think people could fall for Amari Rodgers and J.C. Horn.
Oh, I think people would be pissed if this was the Patriots draft.
I think most people will be pissed, and we'll take that. We'll take that heat. We'll take that flack. But we did want to do something that, quite frankly, it was a little bit more realistic than what we did last week of trading.
This almost feels too much, because when you say realistic, you mean like dull, because the Patriots drafts are viewed as dull. Exactly. This almost feels too much the other way. Maybe. This almost feels like a parody of a Bill Belichick draft.
Well, it is April Fool's, so maybe we just April Fool's to everybody with this draft. But next week, Alex, we can come back. We can try to do a little bit better job with the quarterbacks, be a little bit more aggressive at that spot. I still want to have a conversation about those second-tier guys, not the top 5, but the Mons, the Trasks, the Davis Millses, the Newmans, those types of guys. Because I think that's what we saw here tonight, that if you can't get up there in the top 10 to take one of those top 5 guys, you're going to get lost on day 2 without a quarterback. So I think that's definitely a conversation that we need to have. I think that this was a bad draft in terms of value in, value out, and we did a nice job of kind of showing how this could go really bad if you're not careful, right? And how this could end up being a draft where you miss out on all the quarterbacks. And I hope that that's not the case. I hope that this isn't actually how it goes, but it does. This feels like how a Patriots draft could theoretically go, unfortunately. Whereas last week felt like we were just kind of like doing our own thing. We were doing what we wanted to do. This week kind of felt a little bit more like a Patriot-like draft. But Alex and I will be back on the Tuesday show with Mark Schofield to talk about all the quarterbacks that we just passed on in our mock draft. So on Tuesday with Mark, quarterbacks, whole entire show on the draft QBs. Thursday, we'll do another mock draft. We'll try to do a better job at addressing the quarterback need in that one. But until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching, everybody.